Brian Lehrer on WNYC, and we talked last hour about the tax year deadline, December 31st, to do any tweaking of your finances to leave you in a better position for April 15th. And there's another December 31st deadline looming. If you're a high school senior or have one hanging around the house, you know what I mean, the college application deadline. The college application site Unigo has just teamed up with the Wall Street Journal to recruit campus journalists from around the country to beef up Unigo's college selection and application advice process. So let's talk to Jordan Goldman, founder of the student-run college admissions site, Unigo. Capital U, capital N, capital I, capital G, capital O. Give me a U. Jordan Goldman, welcome to WNYC.
Thanks a lot.
So this is an acronym?
It kind of stands for University Go. So we wanted something that would travel internationally and just be broad-based.
And we'll talk about your deal with the Wall Street Journal later and how that brings college journalists into the process. But I want to first just go down the list that we have from your site of some recent topics of conversation, because I think they speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. And seniors and parents of seniors, you can call up too with related questions or stories. Cautionary tale, anyone? 212-433-WNYC, 212-433-9692. And we even have some clips of admissions officers who you hosted in a recent event, right?
Yeah, so we invited top deans of admissions from 8 colleges to come to Wesleyan University and answer questions sent in by high school students and parents all over America about the application process, because applications are due on January 1st. So we got deans of admissions from Princeton, Marquette, UPenn, Bryn Mawr, Grinnell. It's this wide range of great institutions. And they answered these questions really, really honestly.
So here's one pitfall, folks. After your kid writes that perfect generic essay and then just substitutes the different college names for the particular ones before he or she sends them out, listen to this cautionary tale from the admissions officer from Bryn Mawr.
We often have these essays that say, why do you want to come to our institution in particular? And so you can read, I really loved my visit to Bryn Mawr, blah, 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 blah. And I really look forward to going to Grinnell. And it's just a shame. And it doesn't always, keep someone out, but it does make us reflect on the fact that we could already tell by reading the essay that it was a very generic essay. And then you layer into that the fact that there wasn't the attention to detail to really do the find and replace, fully. Find, replace all.
Moral of the story, find, replace all, and proofread.
Absolutely.
But what does she expect? I mean, is the senior really supposed to write a completely original essay for each of the 35 schools that they're applying to?
Well, it's this daunting process because on the one hand, any senior is filling out so many applications, and there's only so much work and time that you can spend on this, so you want to kind of write one essay as much as you can and have that serve for 35 different schools. On the other hand, from the school's point of view, they get so many applications that it really does stand out when someone writes an essay that makes the admissions officer be able to picture the student on their campus, because it's so personalized. It's talking about, this is what it's – I would be on the student newspaper and I know the name of the student newspaper, and hey, admissions officer, can't you picture me sitting in that desk or sitting on Foss Hill at Wesleyan University? The more you can personalize the essay, the more it shows a commitment to that institution. So it's that fine line. You want to try to make it seem personalized without killing yourself by writing 30 different essays.
You also want to make it seem like you actually wrote it, not your parents.
Yes.
And so we're going to play a couple of clips here on what to focus on in writing an essay. And in the first one, this is just one of the things that comes up, but listen to what the admissions officer from Princeton had to say on what to focus on.
When essays are dashed off and done at the last minute, they look like essays that are done at the last minute. It's really important to spend time on the essays. If it sounds like it's been edited by too many adults, that can be a challenge. And we really want this to be a student's work and their own work. And we also take a pretty dim view of essays that we've read before from some other time or place. So very important that it be a student's own work.
All right. Code words there for plagiarism. No plagiarism. I think we didn't have to go on the radio to say no plagiarism in your college essays. But she talked about looking like it's been edited by too many adults. Can they tell?
Yeah, that was one of the questions we asked. How can you tell? And in some cases, they have purely kind of a fact-checking database of previous essays that were submitted, because you do have people that are trying to submit essays that their siblings used or that their friends used. And then there's a general tone that when it seems to be edited or cobbled together from multiple people, sometimes a professional consultant and your parents and your own words, it just starts to feel more staged and fake. And they really said with the essay, this is a representation of you and your chance to sell yourself. So when it's actually cobbled together from too many people and factors, you're not selling yourself. You're selling this weird amalgamation, and they can see through that.
212-433-WNYC. Parents or seniors. I mean, school is in today, so I don't know if there are any seniors listening right now. But parents of seniors or even juniors, even parents of sophomores go through bouts of anxiety over the college application process to come. So we are lucky to have Jordan Goldman in the studio with us from the site Unigo that many of you have already probably used, with some tips, especially with the application deadline coming up January 1st for so many schools. 212-433-WNYC, 212-433-9692 on the college essay, on when something you post on Facebook can come back to haunt you, and very much on the role of parents. Parents, are you confused about your own role here? What is the proper role? What's too little? What's too much? And here's another clip from your event, Jordan, that is the admissions officer from Grinnell answering the question, can parents be too involved?
Yes, absolutely. I think parents can overstep their bounds as being a coach in the process, and they actually get on the field with their student, and they assume the student's opportunity to get to know the process in the school and to be an advocate for themselves. And so the school ends up knowing far more about the parents and what a good fit they are for the institution, and far less about the applicant himself or herself.
Jordan, you have any stories along those lines?
Well, I mean, people say there's the concept of helicopter parent. They say with the college admissions process, they actually turn into Black Hawk parents, and that they really take control of this process. And a lot of the parents of students applying, especially to selective colleges, are kind of alpha parents themselves, so they want to get down in the woods. A lot of times, some of these colleges actually measure the amount of times that a student will make a point of contact with the university, so every call and every email. And that can actually count in your favor because it shows an expressed interest. And again, just an effort. I want to go to your school more than another school. When the parents are doing that same amount of contacting that the student could be doing, it's not counting at all. So kind of put the impetus and the onus in the hands of the student. Let them be the one doing that outreach, because if a parent talks to an admissions officer 10 times, the student isn't getting that credit.
Ralph in Woodstock, a former admissions director, now a college professor. Hi, Ralph. Thanks for calling.
And a financial aid director, and at a pretty big school. It took being out of that business for quite a while to realize the absurdity of the absurdity of the hoops that we put young people through, expecting. When I hear some of the tapes of admissions officers expecting detailed essays on why a student should want to go to Smith College or Jones College, there's absolutely no way in the world that an admissions officer has any right to expect a really informed sort of understanding on the applicant's part about why a given school is or is not good. What's really going on here a lot of the time is that the admissions people really sort of want to feel sort of affirmed that they work at the right place.
But the critique is good, and we've had these kinds of conversations on the show before. Today we're trying to help the parents and help the families. How does this critique help anybody other than just to get them ticked off?
Well, you know what? It
rightly
does,
ticked off, but ticked off.
Okay. Actually, you know what it suggests, and I saw this work again and again at a really selective school. What it suggests is that you're getting a lot of advice from people who suggest, very well-written essays and make sure they're original and not plagiarized. But they're still sort of sending you like an orthodoxy of what they sort of expect to be in the midst of it about, why I want to study with Professors Jones and Smith, who I know were at Smith College, and so on and so forth. My best advice, and I saw it work again and again, is despite the sort of public advice they give about essays wanting, to be addressed to why a specific school is right, I found extremely well written but unusually quirky essays. That's true. And Ralph, I'm going to go, but thank you very much. And that's often the case, right?
Yeah, something that stands out. I think what a lot of people forget is that this is a process, and these are human beings. Each admissions officer can only look at an application for about 30 minutes, tops. And that's all kind of the analysis that you're going to get. So you need to stand out in as many ways as possible in that 30-minute period so that they want to refer you on to the next level. These are human beings reading these applications.
Mark in Brooklyn, you're on WNYC. Hi, Mark.
Hi. Well, I've never left college. I'm a college professor. But anyway, I'm calling about my daughter who's currently applying. She did early decision with Yale, and she also applied to Oxford in England. Not early decision, but their calendar is just a little quicker. So she got turned down from Yale and accepted to Oxford. And her main thought on the process is the radical comparison between what she underwent with Oxford and what it takes in the States. The Oxford, she was interviewed by 3 professors, one in philosophy, one in history, and one in economics. It was a video conference, and it was very serious. She's head of her debate team, so she felt that, that really prepared her for it. But it was purely academically focused. And the American system is kind of ludicrous, frankly. You have to have spent the summer saving the whales of Peru and have a quirky essay and all this stuff, and there's very little in the way of investigating you intellectually, as it were.
Except they look at your SAT scores and your grades. You're just saying those are not beyond that. And when they're talking to you as a person, is that your point?
Well, with the SAT grades and the scores for the top schools, everybody's coming in with top SATs,
right.
And
good point.
Just about straight A's.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, Oxford. I went to Oxford also. The whole system in Oxford is so different. And a lot of times you're in tutorials, so it's one-on-one with the professors, and the interview process for undergrad tends to be 50% or more of whether or not a student gets in, whereas in an American university, the interview process is often as much to find out about the school as anything else, and is a very small part of what gets you in. That the American kind of portfolio of scores and grades and initiatives that are necessary to get in is much larger. And American universities have far more applicants, so I think a more complex system has evolved than the UK system, where people applying to Oxford or Cambridge each year is significantly fewer than the people applying to these top U.S. universities.
Jordan Goldman, my guest on WNYC, founder of the student-run college admissions advice site Unigo, and Ann in Florham Park. You're on WNYC. Hello, Ann.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
My son applied early action to his top choice school and already heard, and he's been deferred to the regular applicant pool. But in that letter, they asked him to let them know of any other activities he's involved in. And my point was that he, of course, already told them everything he's involved in. And he's concerned that now it will kind of look funny if all of a sudden he becomes involved in other activities in school or volunteer activities. But on the other hand, if he doesn't, does that count against him also?
It's not going to count against him. I'd kind of use it as an opportunity to further flesh out his candidacy and his application. So if there's anything else that adds additional color to what you've already sent in, could it be an additional letter of recommendation from a professor, or maybe an additional essay that he wants to write? Just something that gives more color and more character to the pre-existing materials. That might help. That said, if you don't want to put in anything additional, it's definitely not going to count against you.
Well, he doesn't mind doing something additional. He just didn't want it to look like he was only doing it because they asked him to do it.
Manufacturing an activity.
Just sucking up. Yeah. And thank you very much. Another of those fine lines. Now, looking at your site, here are some of the top 20 topics. Are these by order of interest right now, the way these are listed?
Yeah, these are just topics that were submitted by students all over the country and answered recently by these admissions deans.
Okay. Can what you post on Facebook prevent you from getting into college? Do you need to have a prospective major, or is it okay to be undecided? How important are the SATs and other standardized tests? If your parents are too involved, can they hurt your chances? Does your hometown have any effect on your chances of getting in? The answer to that one is yes, if you're applying to a selective school, right? They're
Yes.
looking for geographical diversity.
Yes, and in some cases, they're even looking for people that are closer to the school. We had the Dean of Admissions of UPenn answer that, and he said, we are looking for people from Pennsylvania. And there is actually a noted difference. You have a better chance of getting in if you're from kind of our own area.
Can what you post on Facebook prevent you from getting into college?
Yeah, that was actually a shocking one for a lot of people that these deans of admissions say they don't, as practice, look over the Facebook profile of every applicant. That said, they do occasionally look, and that is something that's open for scrutiny. And especially if you're doing something on Facebook that violates the honor code of that institution. That could be drinking. You could be saying, hey, it's my senior year. Here's a picture of me throwing back a beer. Either before you apply, if they see that, that will absolutely hurt your chances of getting in. Or even once you've been accepted, these schools consider you bound by the honor code from the day you get your acceptance letter.
Do they go trolling on Facebook when they're reviewing applicants?
They said they don't go trolling on it, but they will occasionally come across it. So they're not making it a point to do it, but it can be considered, if they happen to see it, that can have a real impact.
How about this? Topic number 6. Can a college revoke your offer of admission?
Yeah, colleges revoke offers of admission every single year.
For what?
In some cases, it's for things they find posted online. In some cases, it's if there's fighting, if there's disciplinary actions at school. The biggest one tends to be if there's cheating or if you get arrested for shoplifting or if you get arrested for drugs, any sort of kind of formal disciplinary action does call things into question.
And here's a perennial question number 7. How many schools should you apply to?
Here people tend to say anywhere between 5 and 10 if you're applying to these more selective institutions, that you want to have a mix of safety schools, target schools, and reach schools. But it's becoming more competitive year over year over year. We're seeing some kids submitting 20 and 30 applications, which is overkill.
Deborah on Long Island. You're on WNYC. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's your question?
I have a senior who's applying now, and the process has been just unbearable. I just find that the number of essays required is just, not realistic, like your speaker was saying. And I've just been finding the whole process to be, he doesn't have enough hours of community service. He has stellar SAT scores, not a great GPA. And we're very worried about him getting into a decent school.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that we did this recent webcast and we teamed up with the Wall Street Journal to do this was we wanted to get these deans of admissions in one place to answer as many questions as we could to try to make it less stressful and to try to demystify what's important and what's not.
And we're running out of time. But Deborah's question is really, I think, probably the most important one we've heard today, because what it says is these college applicant high school seniors are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, most people in the world don't have 99 averages and 2,400 SAT scores and, went out and saved the whales in Iceland. And, people have strengths and weaknesses and good grades and bad grades.
Well, I think the biggest thing is everyone has a story.
Lead normal lives.
Regardless of whether they saved the whales, they do have a story, and try to look at all the different pieces of the application as a mechanism to tell that story. And try to have all the different pieces interrelate in as much as you can so that when someone has a half hour to review it, they see a story that's compelling. And that story doesn't have to be I saved the whales. It could just be I'm me. But try to communicate who you are in a way that an admissions officer will take notice.
Now, what is this arrangement with Unigo and the Wall Street Journal?
So Unigo and the Wall Street Journal teamed up. We created something called Wall Street Journal on Campus. It's wsj.unigo.com. And we're teaming up kind of the journalistic resources of the journal with students all over America. We're creating original content. We're creating webcasts. We're creating mobile applications. A lot of really cool stuff.
Did they acquire you?
No, it's just a partnership where we're going to be doing a lot of things over the next couple of years together.
Why should college applicants trust college journalists? They only know their own schools, and usually students like where they go, so they would be biased toward their institutions.
Well, Unigo, we tend to have 10% of the student body on every college campus weigh in on each school. So kind of the virtue of that depth of knowledge is you can sub-search. We have 150 reviews of Harvard. You can say only show me reviews written by female students or African-American students or English majors. See each school from the eyes of someone just like you and have kind of both complementary and conflicting viewpoints.
All right. You get 10% participation, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten tens of thousands of students without paying anyone anything, just students actively coming on and saying, we want to be part of this. We want to take back what our school is actually like with photos and videos and reviews.
Without even having it required in Psych 101.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jordan Goldman, founder of the student-run college admission site, Unigo. Thank you so much for the great advice.
Thanks a lot.
Brian Lehrer on WNYC. Coming up next, Ira Burko. You know that name? He's been covering the New York Yankees for the New York Times for these several decades, and he's going to look back and look forward a little bit. What else do you do on a cold winter's day? Let's talk about baseball. Stay with us.